Hi, this is Dr. Gregory Sadler. I'm a professor of philosophy and the president and founder of an educational consulting company called Reason.io, where we put philosophy into practice. I've studied and taught philosophy for over 20 years, and I find that many people run into difficulties reading classic philosophical texts. Sometimes it's the way things are said or how the text is structured. But the concepts themselves are not always that complicated, and that's where I come in. To help students and lifelong learners, I've been producing longer lecture videos and posting them to YouTube. Many viewers say they find them useful. What you're currently watching is part of a new series of shorter videos, each of them focused on one core concept from an important philosophical text. I hope you find it useful as well. In Book 1 of his work on anger, Seneca is going to take on a commonly made argument about anger, which basically says that, anger is not a great thing, but we do need it, and it's the appropriate response when it comes to defending people who matter to us. For example, family members like parents he's going to talk about. We could also think about friends or people we're responsible for. And there's a lot of people that are quite attracted to this notion that if anger is appropriate in any circumstance, it's going to be defending others who need us to step in. And so, the question is this: doesn't a good person get angry when, for example, family are wronged? And he takes it on at, you could say, its strongest point, particularly for an ancient audience. He says, are you telling me that a good person doesn't become angry if he sees his father being murdered, his mother being raped? And so, within the ancient world, this is about as extreme as an example. I suppose you could say tortured as well, right? But these are really hardcore examples. If you saw your mother being raped, wouldn't you get angry? Wouldn't you then defend your mother from that? The anger would have a very useful, instrumental role in you doing the right thing. And Seneca says, no, the anger is actually not going to be helpful or even needed. He says that such a good person will not become angry, but they will be their champion and defender. And he says, now this is very interesting. Why are you afraid, right? And he uses the word for fear there. So why are you having this emotional reaction about anger? Why are you afraid that a proper sense of devotion, pietas in this case, and we could think of filial piety, piety towards parents, doing the right thing towards your parents. Devotion should lead to doing the right thing without anger being needed. And so this person will be their champion. The word there is vindicare in a sort of different form, right? To vindicate, he will be their vindicator and their defender. And he will do so motivated by this devotion, a better thing rather than anger. And then Seneca makes another interesting argument here. He says, do we say the same thing about other emotions? Take fear, for example. Fear is a natural reaction when we see people who we care about being injured, harmed, humiliated. Do we faint away if we see our mother or father being attacked? No. So why would you say that one emotional reaction is bad, but another emotional reaction is good? They're all emotional reactions which we don't actually need. All of them are equally, from Seneca's point of view, equally inappropriate. So he says that a good person is going to fulfill their duties, or translated here, follow up their obligations, their officia. This is a Stoic term that's used for duty, for appropriate actions, for what is called upon by the person, right? So the good person will actually fulfill their duties, and Seneca says the good person will do so in the right emotional state of mind that is undisturbed without being, afflicted by, say, anger, and undeterred. They will not be stopped even though they don't have this emotion driving them to do so, right? So he says another thing that's very important here. They will do things worthy of a good person, bona viro digna. So that digna there means worthy or worthwhile, and they will not do things that are unworthy. And what is the conclusion we're supposed to draw there? Acting out of anger would in fact be unworthy, indigna, right? Something that we don't need to do. And he also follows this up he consolidates this by saying, the things that are right is what the good person is going to do, right? I know that's right to defend my father who's being killed, or to bring the matter to a proper conclusion, right? Take revenge, but not revenge that's motivated by anger, inflict a certain kind of punishment. They'll do that because it's right, quia oportet. It's appropriate is another way of translating it. Not because the person is pained, quia dolet, literally feels grief or pain or sadness as a result, and then feels anger because of that pain or sadness. So a good person won't behave that way. And then Seneca takes on an Aristotelian, Aristotle's best friend and successor in the school, Theophrastus, and he says, "Hey, Theophrastus, you're wrong about anger." So what is Theophrastus saying in this, we could say, third point? Good men become angry when their friends and family are wronged. That's the sign of being a good person. So this is directly opposed to Seneca's own position. And Seneca is going to say, Theophrastus, you are appealing to the spectators, not the judge. Now, what does that mean? So, in a contest with, say, dramas or other performances, you want to not appeal to the crowd because the crowd doesn't know the real, situation. The crowd is mixed up. The crowd is going to draw bad inferences. The crowd is kind of muddle-headed. You want to appeal to the judges, the people who actually know things. So when it comes to anger, yeah, of course, everybody does get angry, or at least most people do, when somebody that they care about is being hurt in some way, injured, pick whatever you want. Most people do behave that way. But the question is, should they? Is that the right thing to do? Is that the beneficial, useful thing to do? And so Theophrastus is actually getting things wrong by appealing to the masses, right? He says, practically everyone reckons righteous the feeling that they recognize in themselves. People get all sorts of crazy ideas when they get angry. And then he says another thing as well. Anger is indiscriminate. People do get angry, and they get angry over all sorts of things, not just when mom and dad are being insulted by some ruffians or something like that. He goes on and he says they do the same thing if their hot bath is not properly prepared. They get mad, right? If a glass gets broken, if their shoe is spattered with mud. What is going on here? He says it's not a sense of devotion that stirs that kind of anger. It's weakness. It's the sort proper to children who weep just as much whether they've lost their parents or some hazelnuts. It's a lack of proportion, of sensibility. And he finishes up this by saying that getting angry on behalf of one's own, literally, pro suis, it's translated here as on behalf of one's friends and family, is the mark of a weak mind. So, animi infirmi, rather than a strong or mind devoted to duty. And he says the fine and worthy thing is to come forward in defense, and he lists a bunch of different people here: parents, children, friends, fellow citizens. Now, why should we come forward and defend these people because it's the right thing to do, not just because we get angry. You defend them from a sense of duty that is leading, ipso efficia ducente. So the duty itself is providing us with a reason to defend them, which is the right thing in the situation, and we don't have to get angry in order to do this. And he concludes with a really great way of distinguishing this, right? He says, to do so willingly, volentem, we choose it, right? We will to do it. Deliberately, judicantem, judging, right? That this is the right thing to do. Prudently, providentium. And what does that mean? Being providential, sort of setting things up in the right way, planning, you might even say. And how do we not do it? The contrast here, not impulsively or furiously, motivated by anger. We can do the right thing without getting angry. And he concludes by saying, no passion desires vengeance more earnestly than anger. For that very reason, it's unsuited to take revenge. Too hasty and witless, like virtually every form of desire, it gets its own ways. It hurries towards its goal. It screws us up. It makes us less effective, less intelligent as we try to fulfill our duties to defend those who we have some sort of obligation to because of our relationship. So Seneca's point here is that anything we can do motivated by anger, we can actually do better, and not just better in the sense of more efficiently, better in the moral sense, just by being motivated by duty and devotion.